You know that feeling when you open a website or an app and it just clicks? Everything's easy to find, it's comfortable to read, and you just know where to go next. Well, guess what? That is not an accident. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the invisible blueprint that makes all of that happen. Layout systems and grids. So here's our game plan. We'll start by figuring out why some layouts just feel so intuitive. Then we'll get to know the secret weapon for consistency, the grid system. After that, we'll break down its parts, see how these grids adapt out in the wild, and then we'll wrap it all up with the key things you really need to remember. All right, let's dive right into our first section. We're talking about that journey from total digital chaos to, well, effortless clarity. Oh, we've all been there, right? You land on a page and it is a total visual mess. Buttons are everywhere, the text is impossible to follow, and you just want to smash that back button. That feeling of pure frustration, it's almost always a sign that there's no real structure underneath it all. So the fix for that chaos is what we call a layout system. Honestly, think of it like the foundation and the frame of a house. It's the master plan that tells every single piece of content where to go, how to line up with everything else, and what to do when the screen size changes. It's what turns a mess into something that just works. Okay, so if a layout system is the master plan, what's the actual tool you use to build it? Well, that would be the grid system. And this is all about creating consistency and a sense of rhythm. A grid is, no joke, a designer's best friend. It's basically a network of invisible lines that brings a sense of order to the screen. It helps you line everything up perfectly, it maintains all your spacing, it creates this really pleasing visual flow, and, this is the big one, it makes sure the experience feels the same from one page to the next. Now, grid isn't just one single thing. There are a few different flavors, and each one has its own special job. We're going to look at the four you'll bump into most often in digital design: column, modular, baseline, and manuscript grids. So let's break them down one by one. First up, the column grid. This thing is the workhorse of web design. It's by far the most common. It just divides the screen up vertically. You know, think about a news website. The main story might take up 8 columns, and then you've got a little sidebar that takes up the other 4. On your phone, that whole thing just neatly stacks into one single column. It's all about that vertical organization. Next up, we've got the modular grid. All this is a column grid, but with horizontal rows added in. It creates this matrix of little cells, or modules. This is absolutely perfect for anything with really structured, repeating content. Think about scrolling through Netflix or looking at a photo gallery. Yep, that's a modular grid in action. The baseline grid is all about the words. It's basically a set of horizontal lines, kind of like on notebook paper, and it makes sure every single line of text sits perfectly on that line. This creates this subtle vertical rhythm. You might not even notice it's there, but it makes reading long articles so much easier on the eyes. And finally, the manuscript grid. This one's the simplest of the bunch. It's really just one big column, but its strength is its focus. You use it when you want the user to follow one clear path, like reading an article, filling out a form, or just scrolling through a feed on your phone. Okay, so now that we know the different types of grids, let's learn the lingo. We're going to break down the key parts that make up a grid's anatomy. The language here is actually super simple. Columns are just those main vertical stripes where you put all your stuff. The gutters, now these are important. They're the empty spaces between the columns that give your design room to breathe. Margins are the space on the very outside, between your content and the edge of the screen. And rows, like we just saw, are the horizontal lines that give you that full grid matrix. So how does all this theory come together in the real world? Because today, it's not good enough to design for just one screen. We have to design for all of them. So this is absolutely crucial. Static, one-size-fits-all layouts are a thing of the past. Modern design demands responsive grids. These are smart frameworks that can just fluidly adapt your content to look amazing on a giant desktop monitor, a tablet, and of course, the phone in your pocket. And they follow a few simple rules. First, the content rearranges itself. It doesn't just shrink down and become impossible to read. Usually, the number of columns drops as the screen gets smaller. The margins and gutters also change to make the best use of the space. And, so important, on mobile, your buttons and links stay big enough to actually tap with your thumb. And you can really see the difference side by side here. On a big desktop screen, you've got all this room for, say, 12 columns, wide margins, really complex layouts. But on mobile, the whole game changes. You drop down to maybe 4 columns, you simplify everything to just stack vertically for easy scrolling, and you add more space around buttons. It's all about adapting to how the user is actually seeing it. And one last pro tip for you. Consistent spacing is the secret ingredient that makes a design feel really polished. A lot of design systems use what's called an 8-pixel grid. All that means is that every space, every margin, every gutter is a multiple of 8. So like 8, 16, 24, 32 pixels. It's a simple rule, but it creates this incredibly clean visual rhythm that our brains just love because we're wired to appreciate pattern. All right, let's bring it all home with our final section. We're going to wrap up the most important things to remember so you can start designing with real structure and purpose. First, here's a quick hit list of what not to do. The biggest mistakes are ignoring grids completely, just cramming way too much stuff together, using random and inconsistent spacing, breaking alignment just to be creative, which rarely works, and using a bunch of different layout patterns on one screen, which just ends up confusing everybody. So, if you remember anything from all this, make it these 4 things. 1. Layout systems give you that essential structure. 2. Grids are the tool that brings consistency and rhythm. 3. Responsive grids are completely non-negotiable today. And finally, 4. The best layouts are the ones you don't even notice. They just work. And that really is the goal, isn't it? When a layout is done well, you don't notice the structure. You don't see the grid lines. You just have this seamless, intuitive experience where everything flows perfectly. It just feels effortless. So, I'm going to leave you with this final thought. Now that you know the secret, what invisible structures are you going to start noticing? As you use your favorite apps and websites today, pay attention to the alignment, the spacing. You'll be amazed at the hidden order you can now see everywhere.
Like, share, and subscribe.